Hey. Uyo, alebwele la posori.
Uyo, nilesa wasalire sori. Tapane vodinga chikabwe woso.
Sambo chanoa, waba muwato wanoa. Nokubamba na tubomba sofa. Tatwa kaleke sori. Mutambo chanoa, waba muwato wanoa. Nokubamba na tubomba sofa. Tatwa kaleke sori.
Alebwele la futi.
Giving birth to my firstborn son was a challenge, not because of maternal complications, but because the health center was so far away. Today, the newly built health center is only meters away. So with my second-born, it was so much easier. My aunt and my best friend were even there to witness her birth. As a mother, access to antenatal and postnatal healthcare is a priority. That is why I commend the PF government for bringing quality healthcare near our homes.
Mr. President, allow me to thank you. As a grandmother, left with huge responsibility of raising my grandchildren, the social cash transfer that you have been giving us goes a long way in helping us our needs. At least I can afford to buy my beautiful grandchildren school supplies. We thank your poor government for supporting more vulnerable citizens like me. I pray that you continue helping those in need as our president for the next 5 years.
Hey.
Good afternoon, round table viewers from across the globe, and welcome to the roundtable discussion for this afternoon. Our guest is the former Minister of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection, and this is Honourable Raphael Nakachinda. Honourable, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Nakiwe. It's a pleasure to once again have the opportunity to interact with you and interact with our viewers.
Yes, indeed, you have been on the roundtable before, but that time you were still the Minister of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection, and we are so happy that you could take time again to come back to the table.
Thank you very much. Of course, we've been on a campaign marathon, but it's good to be here.
Absolutely, and to those that are just joining us, we are live on several social media platforms. We're live on Smart Eagles on Facebook, on Millennium TV, on Grindstone TV, on our Professor Nkanduluo page, and on the Patriotic Front page on Facebook. So, Honourable, you as you just ably said, you have been touring the country, on the campaign trail, I believe. And now, being a person who has been in the political arena for quite a long time, with your experience, what do you feel is going to inform, the way the Zambian people are going to vote this time? Because we just, in literally a few days from now, Zambia goes to the polls on August 12th to elect leaders for the next 5 years. What are the things they are going to be looking at, as they are casting their votes? What will be in their mind?
Well, clearly the subject matter today is a subject of development. In 1964, when UNIP took over, the subject matter at that time was independence. there was a fight or a quest to, obtain self-determination as indigenous people of this land. So purely the subject was very clear. It was wanting to gain independence, and it was achieved. In 1991, the subject at the time was multipartism. Zambians decided we needed to return to competitive or multi-party democracy, where there could be competition of ideas, and that there could be a political party outside just one political party, though there were, quote unquote, there was some form of democracy within the party. In 2011, the subject changed to a subject of development. Patriotic Front, under the leadership of President Michael Sata, promised that we need to wake up from a slumber and focus on tangible development. We cannot have a situation where, at that time, I think over 45 years to 50 years of our independence, our people are still, living in abject poverty, and are still subjected to very rural setups without facilities and so on. We need to take infrastructure closer to the people. And I think that the subject of development was the yardstick for which voters went to vote. This time around, we are once again around that same subject. It's a subject of saying, have we been able to achieve meaningful development this far? And do we think the team, Patriotic Front, has been able to deliver on this matter? And I think the Zambian people will be going into the booth with a clear picture in their minds of what development they wanted in 2011, whether or not it has been achieved. The comforting thing for those of us who are campaigning for President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the Patriotic Front is that unless you really are not, you're just in denial, the development that has been achieved today is so tangible that you can't deny, you can't ignore. We are seated here at the round table. Just a few steps out of this place, there is a flyover bridge that has helped decongest, is part of the decongestion, decongestion project for Lusaka. Now, there are some people who have been arguing that does it mean decongesting Lusaka is a development that should be celebrated across the country? Yes, Lusaka is the economic hub of this country. Whatever you do across the country, if, for example, you got too sick and you needed highly specialized attention or treatment, you may have to come to Lusaka. If you are traveling out of this country, yes, you may find your way through other means to other places in this world, but clearly facilities that will take you to any corner of this globe are in Lusaka. So being the central hub of economic activities, it is expected that the wheels of the economy and the movement of people as they do their economic activities in Lusaka is made easier. If I'm going to spend 2 hours to move from point A to point B because of congestion, that 2 hours that I've wasted on the road, I could have used it for productive purposes. But now I move from my place to town in less than 10 minutes. And to that effect, it's expected that I would be more productive because I have more time to do my economic activities. So this is not, I want to believe that as we go to the polls, the Zambian people the argument is very clear. Patriotic Front has performed, and the performance is on tangible development that no one can ignore or deny. I'm talking of the urban areas, like Lusaka, but you can move to the Copperbelt, you can go to Livingstone, you can go to Eastern Province, to Chipata, you can go to, Mongu, up to Kalabo. You notice that when it comes to road infrastructure, I think there has been tremendous progress that has been made in that regard. Of course, there could be one or two portions that are yet to be, worked on, but the template and the work so far done does not warranty Zambian people to make any other choice apart from voting for President Edgar Chagwa and the Patriotic Front. So it's a subject of development. For those in the rural part of the country, the major economic activities are to do with agriculture. Zambia has continued to record bumper harvests. Why? Because of the good agriculture policy under the leadership of President Edgar Chagwa, where farming inputs have been delivered in time, for the past number of years. And even when at some point we were devastated by the effects of climate change, we were able to recover out of that because there has been tremendous investment in the agriculture sector to make sure that that sector continues to contribute effectively to the growth of our economy. So our rural part of the country, they may not be 100% satisfied, but I'm very sure that at least between 80% to 90% satisfied in terms of the way the policies have been able to deliver so far. So I do not see any political contender in terms of a political party or indeed a presidential candidate that will have a message to really convince the Zambian people otherwise. The only thing that the opposition now are left with is to become act critics. And act critics or fault finders, even when something is good, they will always find a reason why it should not be the way it is. So, for example, you have a nice table before us. An act fault finder will say, why did you position it like this? It should have been positioned another way. But the principal thing is that there is a nice table before us. And act fault finders, Madam Nakiwe, have been in existence from time immemorial. Even when God himself decided to deliver the children of Israel from Egypt, they turned against God along the way and said, we are more better to remain slaves and eat slave food than the manna that you are serving us and so on, when in fact God was taking them to a promised land, as it is recorded, which flows with milk and honey. So people, they are within a society, within a family, people who are pessimistic. They will never see any good in anything. Even the most wonderful thing, they'll find a fault. So to that effect, I think President Lungu must be encouraged, the Patriotic Front must be encouraged, never to pay attention to people that will never see any good in the efforts and the progress so far registered when it comes to development. The good thing is that the Zambian people, when you are doing what they want, they will stand with you. They are loyal with anybody that is patriotic. They are loyal with anybody that is, delivering to the expectation. And I want to believe that the Zambian people will remain loyal to President Lungu, remain loyal to the Patriotic Front, because the development is there for everyone to see. We can feel it, we can touch it, it's tangible, no one can deny.
Interesting indeed, Honourable Nakachinda. Now, there are 15, candidates at the presidential level, who are aspiring to be presidents of this country. But undeniably, obviously, Honourable, is that the fact that this election is really between two aspirants, and this is President Edgar Lungu of the Patriotic Front and Mr. Hakainde Hichilema of the United Party for National Development. Now, you have been in the political arena again for a very long time, and you have taken time to assess these two gentlemen. Could you just tell us what describe each one of them in your own words?
I think, Madam Nakiwe, You are elevating Ms. Hakainde Hichilema too much.
Okay.
I do not think that he is even a competitor to President Lungu.
Wow.
In this election, President Lungu has no competitor.
Okay.
And that's a fact. President or Ms. Hakainde Hichilema has been posing as the leader of the largest opposition political party. It's a facade.
Okay.
In 2014, there was a challenge within the movement for multi-party democracy. UPND had only 18 members of parliament from Southern Province. They were ranked possibly number 3 at that particular time. It wasn't even by design. It wasn't even as a result of the UPND or Hakainde being favored as a candidate. By default, because of the confusion of another political party, in this case the MMD, he had, some members of parliament that opted to stand on UPND ticket by default. But having encountered him, most of them have regretted the fact that they associated with him. I want you to follow.
Okay.
We had the likes of Professor Ngwango. We had the Honourable Ted Kasonso and many other, members of parliament that were MMD that stood on UPND ticket. And it created the perception as though Hakainde has gained and the UPND has gained, when in fact they were riding on, something else. Now, the good thing is that you can shift people geographically, but you can't shift them from who they are. So the true character of Ms. Hakainde Hichilema has had a toll on those that went to associate with him. If you talk to Professor Ngwango, has his story. If you talk to Honourable Kasonso, he has a story. If you talk to a number of people that at one time were in UPND, they have their own story. I'm sure you've interacted with people like Dr. Canisius Banda, who at one time was MMD chairman for health. He has his own story. If you talk of even people that have associated with the UPND and Ms. Hakainde Hichilema from Patriotic Front, whether it's Honourable Chimba Kambwiri, Honourable GBM, and many others, they have their own story. So to even try and elevate Ms. Hakainde Hichilema as a competitor to President Lungu, I think that is a misplaced judgment. For those of us, because somebody may have an argument, but what of you who are also from MMD and are supporting the Patriotic Front? For us, it has been a natural gravitation, if you like, to go to the Patriotic Front as a result of inspirational leadership. It's not been by default. Some of us criticized the Patriotic Front. We argued against the policies of Patriotic Front, but slowly we have ended up being proven wrong. And as decent human beings have said, okay, if something is working, you don't have to be kicking against it. If something is not is working, you don't have to change it. Hence, all of us are saying, I think for the betterment of the country, out of patriotism and nationalism, we need to support a leadership that has proven to deliver. With President Lungu, anybody who has come close to him and worked with him, they have stuck with him. Their testimony has been different. My testimony is totally different. I can almost affirm that his character, the way he carries himself, the way he looks at things, the condition of his heart, his level of tolerance, his level of patience, really you can only say he's really sent by God. Because I have been, like I've noticed, you have said, I've worked with different leaders in this country. I was privileged to get into politics at a tender age during the Chiluba days, and I was privileged to be able to work with President Chiluba at some reasonable level in our political discourse. I happened to have worked with President Mwanawasa. We only at some point maybe did not agree when there was an issue to do with the persecution of Chiluba and the tax force and all those issues. But later on, fast forward, I've worked with somebody from Chinsali, I've worked with President Rupia Band, I've worked with somebody from Lunte, I've worked with different people. I can tell you that the attributes that I've encountered in President Edgar Chagwa Lungu are unique. He's somebody that sometimes at a distance you may not be able to pick almost obvious, because he's not a con artist. He's not one that wants to present himself in a particular way to the people. You understand? He's just himself. He's just a humble leader. When you come close to him, that's when you come to find these divine attributes that make you stick with the leader. And my personal philosophy is that a leader must be one who maybe you misunderstand at a distance, but when you come close, you get convinced that this is a true patriot, a servant leader who wants the well-being of another, than to have a person who acts in a particular way that makes you attracted at a distance. When you come closer, you find they are hollow, you find that they are wicked, you find that they are really don't, they don't at personal level express what they seem to present to the public. For me, when I compare the two, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and Misaka Ndaichilema, I think even to attempt to start describing them and comparing them, I think it's a mismatch. Misaka Ndaichilema is not even a competitor or somebody that I would want to put on the scale and start weighing President Lungu this side and Aka this side. I think I would be unfair to the, the law of nature or the law of leadership, if you may like.
Interesting indeed, Honourable Nakachinda. For those that are just joining us on the roundtable discussion this afternoon on social media platforms such as Smart Eagles, Millennium TV, Grindstone, the Professor Nkanduluo page, and the Patriotic Front page, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Our guest, Honourable Raphael Nakachinda. Now, Honourable Nakachinda, the issues of the economy that, have been talked about, for some time, issues of one of the issues is the dollar. And today, as we are talking, I think that the dollar, the kwacha is, has improved. There is the dollar was trading at 22. It's today at 21. What could have caused the stabilization of the kwacha against the dollar?
Well, it was expected that obviously economy will be affected to the level that our currency seemed to have been weakened. As a result of obviously the issues I already alluded to. At some point we started off in terms of the challenges with the effects of the climate change. I mean, Zambia should not forget that we had suffered floods and at the same time, droughts. The country was split in two. Half of the country didn't have a drop of rain about 3-4 years ago, and therefore not only the farming activities that were affected, but also livestock was affected. The livelihood of our people was affected, whether it was in Southern Province, Western Province, Eastern Province, part of Central Province, part of Lusaka, which compelled the government to be able to feed, not only look after the people, but feed them on a daily basis. I'm sure Madam Nakiwe remember that at some point the office of the Vice President was busy distributing the relief food in this part of the country. But in essence, actually across the country, because the northern part of the country also, even when they had rain, but they had it in too much abundance that it destroyed the efforts that were made in terms of farming and other agriculture activities. So the whole country had to be fed, and feeding close to 3 to 4 million people, which is about possibly something like 20% of your population, has needed to be fed and sustained during that period because of hunger that had hit because of issues of the climate change. Just when we're coming out of that challenge, we ended up with the COVID-19, and it has been with us from 2019. So to that effect, if things remained the same, then it should have been abnormal. What has happened is what obviously is normal, in the sense that the economy has suffered shocks as a result of these issues. But the good thing is that the President and the Patriotic Front leadership has made sound decisions that has made our economy to remain afloat. I'm even amazed that, first of all, a landlocked country like Zambia, at the time that the country, the neighboring countries and the globe had shut, and a country that is been dependent on imports for a longer period of time, now we could not have goods from other countries into the country. We're still able to survive. There are two things that I attribute that to. Obviously, the grace of God, but more so, I think, also the sound leadership that President Edgar Lungu provided. What is it that is causing the economy to start looking up? The President did not lose focus in the midst of these challenges that I've referred to. He has still remained, had his eyes remain focused on the ball to make sure that we conclude the infrastructure program or projects that we are being undertaken to open up the country, put up the necessary social, saving, infrastructure. When I say social, I'm referring to hospitals, I'm referring to, schools, universities, and so on, to make sure that the human capital, the citizens of this country, which is the greatest asset, remain capacitated in terms of skill, but also remain healthy. If you look at the mortality rate in this country, the mortality rate has really drastically gone, very low. Why? Because of good health facilities that have been put in place. Our people are more skilled today than it was before. Why? Because there are many primary schools, many secondary schools, and many universities that have come up from just the 2 universities that we had. Now we have 8 public universities and numerous private universities, to make sure that our people are capacitated or increase their capacity by way of acquiring new skills. Before, the globe was fed with propaganda. Things are wrong in Zambia. There were people who are criminal-minded, evil-minded, that attempted to project that Zambia is not stable anymore. The testimony of Zambia for many years is that we're a peaceful country, we're a democratic country. We had President Kaunda in 1991, when he saw the will of the people over the issues of multipartyism, concede and allow that the will of the people prevails, even to a point of him conceding defeat in that election. We had in 2001 a situation where there were a few individuals that were propagating issues of third term for President Chiluba. When he saw that the people did not want him to proceed with the third term bid, he allowed the will of the people to prevail. So, and history has it that when Rupia Banda saw that the will of the people is that they preferred the Patriotic Front, he conceded defeat. That track record of being a democratic country, a few individuals were attempting to tarnish that legacy, which is important for economic development. You've seen, videos circulating where, people, foreigners were giving interviews saying Zambia can be equated to, Switzerland in terms of tranquility, being democratic, being suitable for, foreign direct investment. That has been Zambia, what Zambia is known for globally. Now, because of these criminal elements who think that they need to take power at all cost, they began to paint a picture that is not correct about this country. You've seen politicians who have gone to foreign countries, which is actually very unpatriotic, to go and speak bad about a country. They'll go to South Africa, they'll go to the UK, they'll go to all these places, creating some kind of anxiety and jitteriness on the part of those that naturally would want to invest in Zambia and be able to continue with their businesses. So to that effect, that propaganda began to affect the way people were perceiving and looking at Zambia. But I think those falsehoods have now been debunked. But the good thing is that also the route that Zambia has taken to start using gold bullions as part of the reserves, the foreign reserves, part of the equity of the country, if you may like, is beginning to pay off. And I can only commend President Lungu and also commend the Bank of Zambia, Governor Mvunga, for the good work that is doing there. Hence, the effects is beginning to be seen in the strengthening of the kwacha. And actually, the strengthening of the kwacha at this particular stage, I can only say to the Zambian people, just give it a few weeks, give it a few months. You'll be amazed, especially after the election. You'll be amazed at the progress will be made, because some of the people that were holding back are beginning to see that the fear that possibly there could be a change of government is no longer valid. So there is continuity, and to that effect they are beginning to come back, invest back. So the level of confidence to the investors, to the market, and the economic players is beginning to increase. I think if there was any phobia to economic players, was the fear that there could be a change of government. Change of government, by people who you can't trace any iota of consistency in the way they do their politics. And clearly, foreign investors usually do their investigations and due diligence. They can tell that there is a bunch of dealers who themselves have used standard methods to enrich themselves, but they want now to capture power and be an extension of state capture, because they also have gone into alliances with the foreign elements. So that created some kind of anxiety and fear in those who naturally have been doing business in Zambia or cooperating with Zambia. But I think that fear has been taken away, because clearly President Lungu is winning and there is continuity. So there are many factors that have led to the strengthening of the kwacha, but I'm very sure, more than 100%, that in a few weeks to come, after the smooth first round victory for President Lungu on the 12th of August, the only thing we anticipate for our economy is to move forward and to project in the right direction, and that is to progress moving up here.
Great stuff, Honourable Nakachinda, and to our viewers that are joining us, we will soon be getting interactive with you. We will be reading out some of your questions to the Honourable Nakachinda. And again, thank you for joining us on all the social media platforms that you are watching us from this afternoon. Later today at 20 hours, you can still catch a repeat of this program on Smart Eagles page, as well as on Millennium TV mainstream. Now, Honourable Nakachinda, let us try and look at the two manifestos, the manifesto of the Patriotic Front and the manifesto of the UPND. What compelling features does the manifesto of the Patriotic Front have, in comparison to that of the United Party for National Development?
Well,
and perhaps you can also demonstrate why one is being referred to by many people as being more superior than the other.
Okay, first of all, I have seen and I have read the Patriotic Front Manifesto, a document that is in public domain. I think it has been examined both locally and internationally. It's one of actually the catalysts for confidence generated by the different players in the economy. Because when they look at the Patriotic Front Manifesto, it's very clear. First of all, reporting on what has happened so far in terms of development, and also projecting in terms of policy position where we're going. What is striking for me is the fact that clearly the template was systematic. Let's invest heavily. It may be painful, but necessary in infrastructure. After infrastructure, let's move phase 2, and that is to industrialize and make our economy become productive, value add, so that whatever the forex that we've been losing in importing finished goods, why don't we begin to have some kind of an exchange? We also export, finished products, or at least semi-finished products, so that we earn more of forex. And then, whilst we continue to trade with our neighbors and the globe. So the thrust of towards industrialization is very, encouraging for me, because where we are seated here, Madam Nakiwe, is that everything that we are using, all the tools for us to have this interview, including what we're wearing, is all imported. That in itself signifies that your economy cannot be healthy. Why are we importing everything? We're importing everything because at the time there was a program to privatize, to bring in private, the private sector to participate in, doing business, because in UNIP days, all the companies, factories, and so on were they were parastatals run by government. And because of many other factors, the liberation struggle in the region and all those things, these companies were not operating at full capacity. Professionalism had been lost. I think political interference had crept in, and therefore to bring some kind of professionalism in the running of these entities, what was propagated then, that we need to have, the private sector come in. But those who were entrusted with the process, looked at it as an opportunity for them to enrich themselves at the individual level. It's amazing that some of them were even, undertaking double agency. They come to government, advise that, oh, this company just sell it for $200. The asset, yes, the asset is highly valuable, but this is to attract foreign investment. And to that effect, when these foreigners come, they will bring in capital and the jobs will not be lost. Not knowing that they have gone to cut deals. Those people are sold, a company in hundreds of dollars, not thousands. There were the companies that were sold just less than $1,000. And then foreign, those foreign, entities come, they pick machinery from Zambia and go and pitch it somewhere else. A sad story that was shared by Honourable Mumbipiri when she was ambassador in Kenya, how she went to one of the shanties there to find where they are locally producing even uniforms for soldiers and police officers in Kenya. And when she asked about the machinery, she was told that it was a machinery that was on the copper belt in Zambia under Sirius. Okay. Why? Because we had dealers, criminals, wearing jackets as young techs, academicians or economists, if you like, that took advantage of that process, wiped our industrial base away for purposes of just temporal personal gratification, accumulating wealth at personal level at the expense of the country. Our textile industry has gone. Everything that we're producing at some point, people were going to UK, for example, and buy a suit and come in Zambia priding themselves that I bought this suit in UK. And if you go and check, you find it's a serious suit from Rwanda or from the Copper Belt. We have lost all that, all those credentials in terms of, value add and, producing our own products. The agriculture industry at some point was booming when it comes to growing of cotton. Why? Because there were ginaries all over the country, in Eastern Province, in Mumbwa, in all these places, processing our cotton for purposes of producing, cloth, and eventually process it into clothes and other things. Today, where I'm seated here, in and out, I am dressed with foreign, foreign things. So, when you say the manifesto of Patriotic Front, what is it that is striking? The number one thing that strikes for me, that is striking for me, is the root of industrialization. All the challenges that people are talking about, cost of living and so on, will be a thing of the past for as long as we move on a faster rate to industrialize. The UPND that you seem to be insisting we should discuss, because in your mind and a few others I want to project that the UPND are the main contenders. I don't think so. I disagree with you, and I disagreed with many. First of all, I have not seen their manifesto. Okay. The closest point they came to try and produce a manifesto is what we heard, that it was a copy and paste from Jamaica, and they withdrew it. But what I know myself, the agenda of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, first of all, is not even collective, it's personal. Because Mr. Hakainde Hichilema is my relative, we come from the same village. He is actually just advancing a personal ambition of wanting to be a president because he is Tonga speaking, and because no Tonga has ever been president. So when we are in our own circles in the village, Monze, Joma, and all those areas, wanakiwe chotunwa jibandiko nchagoti HH ngomurombwana utibe president wakusanguna kuno kumusanza.
You have to translate, Honourable. I don't understand.
The point is that he is sending a message that I'm going to be the first Tonga president to emerge in this country. Okay. Now, I know that purely the agenda has been based on tribal or ethnic consideration. That's why he's coming on the political scene. He was proposed on the basis of tribe. When you look at the conduct of Mr. Hakainde, I know that when we discuss these things, some people are uncomfortable, but that's a truth. Mr. Hakainde was proposed to be UPND president on what basis? That is Tonga speaking. And from the time he took over, all those that belong to other ethnic groupings ended up being hounded out, or them leaving having been frustrated. Those who were vice president, whether it was Bob Sichinga, today Bob Sichinga is seen to have been associating with the UPND out of just sheer personal frustration. But his testimony is clear that he was hounded out on the basis of his ethnic grouping. Sakuba Skota, ask him his testimony. Sakuba Skota was a natural successor to Mazoka after he died. But he was being challenged by some of the studios of Hakainde Hichilema, because before, Hakainde was in the background as one of those that were errand fellows to raise funds for the UPND. And obviously he was entrenching himself, having been one of those who were mobilizing resources. The errand boys of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema from Southern Province, some of which now have defected to PF and are disclosing how they were instructed to do certain things. They would hound out Mr. Sakuba Scott, who was vice president #1, out of meetings, which he naturally should have been chairing, and they talk on their own. My relatives, before they call others. And that's how people said, if this thing has become a tribal cabal, we are moving. And I can tell you, I can even challenge some of the people that think we're just being, politicking and trying to be tribal. Associate with my brother for 2 weeks, for 2 months, you will tell me. What has happened to Kambwiri? Kambwiri, if there was a person I met myself one time, I remember on the Copper Belt, we went to a graduation at CBU. I think he had a relative who was graduating. I had some young people that we support to school and try to mentor them in politics and so on, who were also graduating. When we were coming from there, we were flying back from Lusaka at Indora Airport. And I said, sir, my brother, I know that you could be upset with some, something. And I don't want to discuss whatever may have upset you, from PF. But I'm hearing that now that you have formed a political party, you are being invited to go into an alliance with, my brother. I think I would rather that you reflect before you go that route. Honourable Kambwiri said, no, I'm a nationalist. Every Zambian has a right to see their country. Even Hakainde is a Zambian. I said, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying he's not a Zambian. I'm saying he's a unique Zambian. Today, the testimony of Honourable Kambwiri is no different from the testimony of Dr. Kanishas Banda. It's not different from the testimony of Richard Kapita. It's not different from the testimony of GBM. It's not. So you are trying to compare a person who's running a tribal cabal with a leader who, first of all, never imposed himself for leadership. People bestowed the trust in him. President Lungu in 2014, who was not among those who are parroting to say I can be leader or whatever, it is his works that spoke for him. President Michael Sata saw in him a leader that was more focused on saving and be able to produce, deliver results in whatever portfolio that was given, without parading himself and trying to present himself as the most qualified or the almighty. That humility is what caused President Sata to identify him. And later on, even when President Sata seemed to have signaled that this is, I think, the one that can succeed me, there were some fellows who were inimical to the peace of this country, who wanted to use thuggery and other things, went to President Lungu because he was acting president, give us instruments of power. But you know, when you are a servant of the people, leadership just naturally follows you. That's why I laugh at some of the people who project themselves, I'm the greatest, I'm the anointed, I'm the one, and so on, I'm the Messiah, I'll fix. The moment you hear people presenting themselves in that manner, it's actually number one disqualification for them. When it comes to traditional leadership, Madam Nakiwe, in time past, I'm also a reader of history, is that actually one of the criteria to disqualify somebody from succeeding as chief or indeed king or whatever traditional position, it was always those who imposed themselves as the most qualified. Usually the elders, the kuta or the shurubembas or the people who are in charge of selecting who should take over, they will look at those who qualify to ascend to that position. Usually they'll pick one who is wise, but usually sometimes even disqualify herself or himself for that particular position. Because of that attitude of servitude, that's eventually that qualifies them. The reason why President Lungu has beaten, his record is really second to none, is because he didn't get into the presidency as an ambition. He found himself there, entrusted by the people to save in their interests. Hence his zeal to deliver to the expectation of the Zambian people. He has not gone into the presidency as an entitlement. That's why he's different in attitude by some of the leaders that are offering themselves. Some of them feel they're entitled. So if you ask me a question, can you create a contrast? Maybe generally, all these who are competing with President Lungu, Hakainde feels he's entitled. Neva Sumumba feels that he's entitled. Everybody else is a demon, he's the most righteous. Kalaba, he feels he's entitled. Fred Member feels that he is entitled. And most of these people are also carrying frustration. If you hear their conversations, they are annoyed with somebody. They somebody's maybe newspaper was closed, therefore I'm going to get into politics, they will see. Somebody, I didn't, my opportunity to become president in PF was not coming too quick, so I jumped, I formed a political party, I have been exposed enough, foreign affairs and so on, I'll become president. Just nothing frustration. You can't have a bunch of frustrated people wanting to go and quench their frustration on the seat of presidents. No, the presidency is sacred. It is the symbol of our sovereignty. We are running a presidential system. Therefore, you need a person who is sober, a person that is mature, a person that is not harboring hate, bitterness for anybody or indeed a group of people. That is the kind of person that you need in that office. And President Lungu is that person. That's how come President Lungu has been able to reconcile with everybody. I'm one of those that may have not said kind words, about President Lungu at the time that he just became president. But he went beyond what I said and be able to identify, oh, this young man, there's some talent, there's some experience, there's some value that he can add to the country. And therefore, if you're willing, let's work together. All those who spoke ill of President Lungu, who eventually turned around and said, no, I think we realize our folly. We're willing to come. He has embraced them. I do not see some of these leaders who are saying they are the Messiah, they are the Moseses, being able to accommodate the views of other people. They would actually prefer to kill than to forgive.
Very, very interesting indeed, Honourable Nakachinda. Now, we'll soon be going to the questions. Our social media, viewers are already firing questions at you. But before then, I just want to, you to comment on, you participated in the PF virtual rally. I think the very first one, you were one of the speakers. And something very interesting that you mentioned that, took social media by storm and everybody went to town about it is you mentioned something very interesting. Yes, we can eat roads. Those were your words. Can you qualify that very quickly before we go to social media? What do you mean we can eat roads? How?
I mean, it was a little diss I was giving to the opposition because I have realized that the opposition have, on all fronts, they have no argument against Patriotic Front and against President Rongo. Whether it's infrastructure, whether it is agriculture, whether it's what. So in the end, they're turning the good, by creating some dramatic lines. For example, yes, Wanamanga Marod, Bushetizadi Marod. I'm sure you heard those statements. I am just, a few days ago, I was laughing at somebody who prides himself to be an economist. He used to be former Minister for National Planning, what is his name? Lakem Lusa. I mean, recording himself confidently that ngabaisa mkume torikula marodi muka sendempoto muka webshatiri kwisa road tuliom. That kind of talk. And this is an economist, eh? I mean, it's just bluffing, trying to be dramatic because there's no message. Listen, my sister. You can eat roads. Why and how? If a farmer grows his produce in Taveransoni in Chadiza, and they have to get those produce to Lusaka, you needed to have the greatest road done, as the Patriotic Front have worked on it, so that those things can easily get into Lusaka. That farmer, by bringing his produce to the market, they'll sell, get some money, not only eat, but also send their children to school. They're able to access health facilities. Me who's in Lusaka, who hasn't possibly gone to the field to grow, I'll be able to buy those produce and feed. What has necessitated that connection is a road. That's the implication of the statement I made. You can eat roads. You eat roads in the sense that, first of all, the facilities that the Patriotic Front has put in place encourage people to be productive. If you are growing maize or growing cabbages, you are growing all these farm produce, and you know that they will just get rotten in the field because you can't take them to the market, you would be discouraged from being productive, isn't it? But if you have a road that has been done that will easily help you access the market, it will encourage you to be productive. You will not only produce cabbages, possibly you also look at what is demanded at the market, possibly you grow onions, you grow tomatoes, you become more productive because there's accessibility to the market. So the implication of what I was saying is that roads are a necessity for you to be productive and be able to undertake your economic activities in a smoother, faster way, hence giving you more money in the pocket. Therefore, you're eating the road. You can eat a hospital. How can you eat a hospital? If a person is sick, they can never be productive. No matter how educated they may be, if they are sick, they can never be productive. But if you take them to the hospital and they are cured of their ailment, the next thing is that they'll be productive. Therefore, that hospital has been, you can eat it in that implication, in that sense. You know that education is the greatest equalizer globally. It's a universal principle. The more the citizens get educated, the more prosperous that nation will be. Therefore, the investment in education, therefore, schools, you can eat them. Because when a child is educated, eventually tomorrow they'll be more productive, and therefore you can feed from that. So the investment that Patriotic Front has made in infrastructure cannot be trivialized by those fault finders who now want to twist, I can't eat a road. Yes, but I mean, that's a language of laziness. Do you want somebody to come and put food in your mouth? Is it not that government's job is to make sure that the environment is conducive for you to be productive? Surely, mulefa bakateka basendo bwale babike mkano. Naba mpangiro musebo. kwa tikutu mwa famu mwalima mwasenda na ifisabo fienu na ngurefu mwa sombola mwaleta ku market mwashitisha makata kandalama. That was the basis of my statement.
Interesting indeed. I think well explained if you ask me. Now we go to social media, and on us, this is coming from the Smart Eagles platform on social media. We have Chishala Mwamba, who is asking, how do you think the 24-hour economy will help the economy, sir? And then we have George Bikosita, who says, would you say the PF have achieved all that they have laid down in their previous manifesto 2016 to 2021 before they can even talk about their new manifesto 2021 to 2026? And then the last one we have so far is from Grace Mulalumba, who says many of the opinion polls so far on social media are revealing that the PF will win these elections. And so how ready and prepared is the PF to go to the elections on the ground?
Well, when you say that, has the Patriotic Front been able to fulfill its promises of 2016 to 2021? Maybe I can speak authoritatively from the water development, sanitation, and environmental protection, ministry point of view, because I was privileged to have served there. Madam Nakiwe, from first of all, the mere fact that the president, found it prudent to create that ministry, so that there could be premium placed on this very essential commodity, the provision of water at domestic level, personal level, safe and clean water for consumption and usage, to guarantee the well-being of our people in terms of health and otherwise, but also to be able to harvest our water for industrial use, because there is no economic activity you can ever undertake without water, whether it is mining, whether it is agriculture, whether it is whichever you can talk about, water is involved. The ministry was created, and it has proved to have been the most sound decision His Excellency ever made. Because in terms of access to clean and safe water for our people, before 2016, it's shocking to discover that only about 48 to 50% of our people had access to clean and safe water. The totality of our population, only less than 50% or around there, had access to clean and safe water, and most of whom were in the urban areas. President Ru created that ministry, giving importance to these services in terms of water supply services and sanitation, plus environmental protection because of issues of climate change. By the end of my tour of duty, of course, riding on my predecessor's efforts, we were scoring over 75% of our people accessing clean and safe water. That is within a period of 5 years. The 48 to 50% was from independence up to 2016. From 2016, we have been able to beat the record that was possibly made or scored in 50-something years, in 50 years, if you like. So I can say that the Patriotic Front has actually exceeded the expectation of the promises made in time past. When I read the first manifesto of the Patriotic Front, the first leg of development was infrastructure. They had projected that it would take 15 years to build infrastructure in this country. But in less than 10 years, in 9 years plus, most of the infrastructure projected from 2011 has actually been achieved, most of which has been achieved from when President Lungu took over as president. So when you talk about infrastructure, you talk about development and the promises, I think in every sector, you see there is no sector that has not been touched. And there is no part of this country or region of in this country that has not been received a fair share of development. Those who try to complain, they actually just complain out of hypocrisy, because the drilling of boreholes across the country, The harvesting of water through construction of dams is across the country. The investment in terms of utility companies is across the country to improve water supply. In terms of regulating the usage of our fresh water that we boast about, that we host 40% of water in the region, it is all done across the country. When I was leaving office, there were now thoughts that were being researched on to start harvesting water through canals and so on from the water from regions that have abundance of water to regions like the southern part of the country that seem to be struggling in terms of water, because even groundwater seems to have dried up, to move part of that water in this region to support agriculture and other things. Those are things that are being implemented under the watch of President Edgar Chagalungu. I'm sure if, and I know not if, when President Lungu wins these elections, whoever that will be privileged to be in that office, they will be able to run through and implement some of these projects, and the country will continue to be on the trajectory of prosperity and development for this country. I think those are some of the sentiments I can make in terms, unless you remind me of any question that I've left out.
The other one is the many opinion polls that have revealed that PF will win the election. Is PF ready? You know, I think that this person is trying to say the opinion polls on social media, and they're saying that PF will win. But how is it faring on the ground? You know, there's the issue of social media, and there's the issue of the groundwork.
You know, the opposition, most of them have, particularly obviously UPND, they have been, they are supported by foreign interests, funded by those foreign interests. That's how come some foreigners now, out of frustration, have even joined the campaigns. I'm sure you have seen white people starting to campaign for President, for Hakainde Hichilema. Some of them have even tutored themselves to speak Tonga and try and speak Bemba, because they have invested so much money in UPND, and every time they pour money in it, they lose. They pour money in it, they lose. This time around, I think they have taken it a do or die. Nasa zanga na campaign. So wazungu wabuera manyedewa campaign Hakainde Hichilema. But I think they have invested more in social media propaganda. PF is a people party. Why was MMD defeated in 2011 that was highly organized? Is because PF went to the people. And I can tell you that PF is still with the people. And yes, social media, those that have been researching and posting opinion polls, my view is that they have actually, in a way, underestimated the margin with which President Lungu will win. I know that projection that will be 60%. From traversing the country, I want to believe that he may go beyond 60%. He may actually be a surprise package this particular election, that he may even touch 70 or more percent as it was in 1991. But this time around, it won't be from the opposition taking over. This time around, it's a president gaining, you know, momentum and gaining more trust to the Zambian people, and they give him that kind of mandate. President Lungu will be the first of his kind in this election, because he has listened to what the people want. One of the interesting things about President Lungu is that he doesn't talk much. He doesn't talk much. He listens more. And if you notice that he would prefer to go and meet the very rory people than to argue with some of these people on social media and everywhere. People be criticizing him on radio and talking all the time. You find even kushibuyunji na mahedimeni wankana na wantu wapansi wamvera venwachit, and they delivers. He's working, listening to the people and dealing with people issues. That's what makes him unique. Most of the presidents that came before him, if they were ever going to meet people in the different parts of the country, they will meet a chief, and the chief should tell him, the president, or tell that president what the people in his chiefdom are going through. After that, that president will come back to Lusaka. But President Lungu will meet chiefs, he will go down to the headmen, he will go down to meet church leaders, pastors, he will go down and meet different groupings, marketeers, listen to their issues, and when he has jotted, come back to State House, start implementing. So the issues of the ordinary person is being attended to. Hence, even the initiative for social cash transfer, that is meeting, is relieving the burden of the ordinary people in rural areas. Some of us who have old people that we are looking after, that social cash transfer fund has relieved us of the pressure because we're carrying so many, of our grandmothers and aunties and all these people that are advanced in age and their level of productivity is going low. But the president, because he saw the need, he interacted with the people and the pressures they are going through, he put a package for them to be able to relieve the citizens. You can't beat such a president, I can tell you that. No matter how good you are at social media propaganda, you cannot. President Lungu is with the people and is winning this election with a landslide.
Great stuff, Honourable Nakachinda, and interestingly, time has flown by. I'm being told by control that we are literally have run out of our time. Therefore, I want to take time to just thank you for having made it to the roundtable discussion this afternoon. I know you are very busy, but once we called on you, we are grateful that you made time to come through.
No, I'm grateful, and I look forward to the victory of His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa on the 12th, when the vote is cast, and possibly on the 13th, 14th, when the announcement will be made. It's a vote for unity, it's a vote for peace. Voting for President Lungu, you're voting for the continued stability and peace of this nation. And it's a vote for patriots. Let every Zambian be patriotic and vote for President Lungu.
Great stuff indeed. There you have it, our roundtable viewers from across the globe. We featured Honourable Raphael Nakachinda, former Minister of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection. To those that joined us on Smart Eagles, on PF page on Facebook, on the Professor Nkanduluo page, on Grindstone TV, we want to say thank you indeed for taking time off your very busy schedules to just join us on this very important discussion. Additionally, tell your friends to tell their friends to watch out for the program again at 20 hours on Millennium TV mainstream, as well as on Smart Eagles Repeat on Facebook. On behalf of the Roundtable crew, my name is Nakiwe Simpungwe, your presenter. Till we feature another guest on Tuesday, it is good afternoon.
Hey.
Uyo, alebwele la posori.
Uyo, nile sawa salire sori. Tapane vodunga chikabwe woso.
Chambo cha Noa, baba muwato wa Noa, nokubamba na tubomba sofa, tatwakaleke sori. Chambo cha Noa, baba muwato wa Noa, nokubamba na tubomba sofa, tatwakaleke sori.
Alebwele la pu, na futi.
President Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the PF have facilitated increased electricity generation to 3,000 megawatts in 2020 from 1,767 megawatts in 2011, while households connected to the national grid are now over 1 million. Vote for President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the PF that have brought you change. President Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the PF have facilitated increased electricity generation, while households connected to the national grid are now over 1 million. This development has seen a significant reduction in load shedding.
Thank you
so much.
Vote for Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the PF that have brought you change.